Hey everybody, and welcome to Dominion Cards, the video series where we take a strategic, in-depth look at various cards in the board game Dominion. Today we're looking at Lookout. This is a 3-cost action card from Seaside. It says +1 action. Look at the top 3 cards of your deck. Trash one of them. Discard one of them. Put the other one back on top of your deck. Now, as always, just some quick rules clarifications about these cards when necessary. So the order of operations on this card is very important. You must trash a card first, then you discard a card, then you put one back on top of your deck. Now what this means is that if you only have one card left in your deck and discard piles, you will be forced to trash that card if you play Lookout. And if you have only 2, one of them must get trashed and then the other one will be discarded. Very rarely you may come up to a situation where the act of trashing or drawing the card causes you to draw more cards in the middle of resolving Lookout. When that happens, the cards that you are looking at have basically been taken off of your deck. So the cards that you draw are the ones that were underneath the 3 that you've picked up to look out with Lookout. So once you finish resolving Lookout, the card you put back on top, you don't draw that card, basically. So these are just some examples of cards where that will happen. 3 of them from Dark Ages, that when you trash them, you draw cards, and Vintage Green from Menagerie. When you discard that, you get a chance to play it, and when you play it, you will draw a card. Anyway, so on to Lookout itself. So Lookout is forced trashing, but most of the time when you play it, it will be blind. You don't know what cards you're going to look at because they come off the top of your deck, and most of the time you don't know what order cards are in on your deck. So there's an inherent risk when you play Lookout because you don't know what you're going to be looking at. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be a card that you actually want to trash in the 3 that you look at. So the sort of the well-known worst-case scenario with Lookout, you draw 3 cards and they're all provinces, or the provinces and golds and stuff, and you've got to trash one of them. This has happened to new players before. Revealing 3 colonies is something that I do know has actually happened to someone before, which is quite funny. It wasn't funny for them, but it was funny for everyone else. So if you play poorly with Lookout, you can just end up losing your powerful cards. And this is not cost-relevant trashing. You do just lose the card and get nothing else for it. So you really got to watch out with Lookout. There is that risk involved. Now, Lookout is a pretty good opening card. It costs 3 and it's non-terminal. So a lot of the time, there are lots of good terminal 4-cost cards that you might want, like say you want to open with Militia or something. This is why your 3-cost buy, a lot of the time it might be, say, silver, because you don't want to run the risk of drawing something dead along with your 4-cost opening. Because if you had 2 terminals and you drew them together, you can't play them both. Well, Lookout being non-terminal means that it doesn't get in the way of drawing these together, and so it's the perfect cost, basically, for buying it straight away as the opening. In addition to that, when you play Lookout, you do cycle through your deck by 2 cards. This is because of the 3 cards you look at, one of them's getting trashed and the other one's getting discarded, so 2 of those 3 you're never going to draw. That means that you are more likely to play both opening cards before turn 5. So there's a well-known thing where if one of your opening cards, or both of them, are the 11th and 12th cards in your deck, you might not actually get to play them before they do what we call missing the shuffle. You don't draw them until turn 5 and you shuffle your deck while drawing for your turn 5 hand. If you get the Lookout on turn 3, then even if your 4-cost buy was the 12th card in your deck, you will draw it on turn 4, right? Because your 12-card deck, you're going to churn past 2 of those. So cycling is really good early on. Anything that helps you cycle is often good. That's because early on you're buying really good cards, hopefully, and adding stuff to your deck. You want to be playing the cards that you open with as soon as you can. So getting through all of those junk stop cards that you start with is great. That's also why you're generally trashing cards as well. Now, another thing that you do consider when you're opening is how do you afford the things that you want to buy. So a lot of the time, again, why you might open with a card like silver is because you want to hit 5. Now, the thing with Lookout is that it's not giving you draw and it's not giving you money, so surely that hurts your ability to hit 5, right? So is it really a good opener in that case? Like, if you opened with Lookout and Remodel or something, are you really hitting 5? Well, something you've got to realise is that, especially if Lookout is the only trashing, it's really important to get the trashing in early, and for that reason, because Lookout gets a lot worse later on in the game, if the trashing is good, then you will do it early, and it sort of doesn't really matter if you're going to hit 5 or not, because picking up like a silver and thinking, I'll just wait to buy Lookout later because I really got to get this in 5 cost card. It may be the case, unless it's something like Sentry that you're trying to buy, it may be the case that if you do that, you just can't trash very well with Lookout later on. And of course, Lookout cycles you a bit as well, which speeds you up to getting the other cards. So you might not actually lose that much pace if you open with Lookout and then wait to get a 5 cost card a little bit later in the game. Obviously, this is so very kingdom dependent, I can't really give you specific examples, but these are just general concepts I've touched on before, and I just wanted to say how Lookout fits within those general concepts. So a card you might be thinking of when you look at Lookout is Sentry. Sentry also potentially discards and trashes cards from the top of your deck. So there's going to be a lot of shared strategy advice between these two cards. So as is the case with Sentry, when you are trashing from the top of your deck and potentially blind, it's really important that you get the card as early as you can. That's why Lookout is most commonly bought in the opening hands. That's because you have such a high density of junk. Like, when you play Lookout early, very, very likely that you are going to find at least one card that you want to trash, right? It's way easier to trash those estates when they just make up a bigger proportion of your deck. In addition to that, if you are building a deck that gains a lot of cards very quickly, like maybe you open Lookout alongside Ironworks or something, or like a workshop, then you'll find that your density of junk will decrease a little bit more quickly, and that means that it can get harder for Lookout to trash stuff a little bit earlier on than it otherwise might be able to. Similarly with Sentry, you might actually never be able to trash everything that you want to. You might just not find that remaining junk. Right, Lookout only looks at a small portion of your deck every play that you get to choose from, and sometimes all of your junk just isn't going to fit within those small windows. Now with Sentry as well, you can discard cards out of your hand that you want to trash because it's not trashing from your hand, and then if you can draw up most of your deck, leaving that card in the discard, you can then play the Lookout as you get towards the end, and basically ensure that that card is going to be in the 3 cards that you look out. This is also true of like newly gained curses that for the most part get to go in your discard pile. So we talked a lot about this in the Sentry video, but basically, one way to guarantee where a card is to have it be basically like the only card in your discard pile, and then you draw everything else in your deck. This works for Lookout as well. Something that works with Lookout that does not work with Sentry, however, is that you get to top deck cards that you want to trash and then play the Lookout and find it. So with Sentry, you've got to draw a card first, but because Lookout doesn't draw, that means that top decking works. So it's actually easier to find support for Lookout than it is for Sentry in terms of getting your deck completely clean. Now, at some point, a lot of the time, you just need to stop playing Lookout. So unless you have deck inspection cards that look ahead and let you know what's coming up, so things like that might include like Wandering Minstrel, for example. At some point, the density of junk that you have is just going to get too low. And if you play Lookout, you're actually unlikely to find a junk card that you want. And you should just stop playing Lookout at that point. Now, when you do get to that stage, it's very important that you start trying to keep track of the cards that you've seen this shuffle. That's because an opportunity sometimes might present itself where there's a trash card in like the last 3 or 4 cards of your deck. And then you've got pretty good odds of actually finding it, or basically guaranteed. But you've got to keep track to make sure you know that there is one. When you do get that situation, that's your opportunity to keep trashing with Lookout. Because the trashing is forced, as well. Lookout can get a little bit risky in the presence of cards that might accidentally force it to be played, like Herald or Golem, because Lookout is a card that you really, really want to stop playing at some point. Like these sorts of cards, you might end up accidentally playing it and then bye-bye to a gold or something, right? Now, sometimes you come across attack cards that can muck up the top of your deck. So Sea Hag in Seaside will put curses directly on top of your deck. There's like Rabble in Prosperity that will look at the top 3 cards and it will discard any treasures and actions and try to leave curses and victory cards on top, and Oracle, and so on and so forth. These are just a list of some examples. Now, provided that one of the cards they leave on top of your deck is something that you want to trash, a Lookout in your starting hand sort of kind of counters it a little bit, right? You get to trash one of them and potentially discard one of them if there's 2 cards on there that you don't like. The fact that it is non-terminal means that it's really easy to play Lookout first without having to do something like play a village that will force you to draw one of the cards. So I wouldn't say that Lookout was like a hard counter to Sea Hag or anything, but it's well known, particularly Sea Hag, because Sea Hag's also in Seaside. That Lookout can, to some extent, protect you a bit from it. Now, do you ever want more than one Lookout? It's not unreasonable to want more than one. It does only trash one card at a time, and sometimes you want to get thin really quickly. In my experience, what I find, though, is that it can get difficult to, once you hit the stage where you want to stop playing Lookouts, to actually get rid of one of the Lookouts. If you have no other way of trashing cards, having 2 Lookouts in your deck that you don't want to play either of them anymore is just annoying, because there's these 2 useless stop cards left in your deck. So what I have tended to find is quite good is that if I reveal one Lookout to another, perhaps a little bit earlier, then I think I might want to stop playing them. It can be a good idea to just trash the other Lookout, particularly if the other junk card in your deck, like say it's a copper, because you can still keep using a copper, but you might not be able to keep using the other Lookout. So I will say that if you do buy a second Lookout, be prepared to ditch it slightly early. Might be better for you in the long run, because it can get too hard to just get rid of it otherwise. So in summary, Lookout, it's a good opener. It's cheap, costing 3. That's really nice for opening cards. It cycles you a little bit, and it removes some of your early low-cost junk. That's all things we want to do, right? Trash cards, pretty good in Dominion in general, and Lookout is primarily a trasher. Now, unless you have other cards that top deck or discard, then at some point you're going to need to stop playing it as it gets too risky, and you might not have actually got rid of all your junk at that point. It is worth noting that because you want to stop playing Lookouts, it's not really useful to make use of its top decking and discarding functions. If you're thinking, I've got Vassal, I might be able to play a Lookout, one of those cards gets top decked, and now I can play Vassal safely. At some point, that's going to stop working because you've got to stop playing Lookouts. So it's only really considered a trash card, first and foremost. This is the main reason why you ever buy it. It has a scary reputation based off of newer players who play it poorly and hurt themselves. But bear in mind that when you actually play properly with Lookout, and you play it well and you don't play it too riskily, it's a fairly average card, right? It's not the greatest thing in the world, but it's not the worst either, right? It's a middling card, and it's fine. I open with it quite a lot, right? Even if you're only going to trash some junk with it, but that's still a useful function for it to have while it's still got some use in your deck. Okay, that's everything about Lookout. So what we're going to do now is we are going to head over to the online client, going to generate some kingdoms that have Lookout in it, and we're going to see how well Lookout does for us. So here, Lookout is our only trashing. We have Shantytown and Smithy as village and draw. It's not super great, but it works. We've got Ironworks to pick up both of those as well. We've got Ironworks Mill too. So there is an engine here. We do want to get thin. We can supplement the engine with Outpost, and we have got Swindler Attacks to really try and cause havoc. You can turn smithies into gardens. You can turn shantytowns into lots of lookouts, actually. So Swindler's going to be really good here. So it's really good for us to play the engine to try and Shantytown, Smithy, and Outpost, and Swindler, and draw some stuff. We've even got some Tactician support, possibly. Can we do a double tactician deck? We can. We've got Mill to try and generate some money, and Swindler, and possibly Cut Purse as well. So I think we can actually do double tactician while still playing Shantytowns and Smithies to draw a bit more, so we can discard stuff with Mill. So there's a good engine, and it's really important that we look out. Because we've got discarding with Mill, we can actually get completely clean if we want to, and then the lookout that remains is the card that we can discard with tactician. So very good engine, and lookout is very important here for trashing all the junk, because that's what we want to do, and it's the only way we're going to do it. So I'm definitely opening lookout. I think I'm opening lookout and Ironworks, and I'm going to start gaining stuff, and I'm just going to start building an engine. I will pick up Swindler at some point, and I guess Cut Purse is not necessarily very good here. I'd rather keep swindling my opponent. I really want to be hitting their tacticians and outposts and smithies and all that stuff. Lots of engine components to hit with Swindler. It's going to be pretty nasty, but definitely worth trying to build the engine here. So look out, key card. I'm going to buy one early. Here I spot straight away that we don't have any village, and that's a shame because we've got Torturer and Wharf and all sorts of stuff. What do we do here? Because there's Minion. So we've got Lookout and Minion, and we've got Lurker to pick up more minions. I guess that's what we're doing, ultimately. We're going to open with Lookout to try and get thin. If we think our opponent's going to do the same, I'm happy to get a Smugglers, but if my opponent tries to do something like Wharf Big Money, that actually might be better. Well, that's actually still good for Smugglers. I could shift into that. I think we open Lookout regardless. Yeah, I think... Is Lookout good even if we go for something like Wharf Big Money? I think it is. I think we still want to get rid of some estates and so on. But yeah, our choices are either a Minion deck or Wharf Big Money, and the Minion deck doesn't really hurt Wharf Big Money that much. Wharf is just so strong. If we do go the Minion deck, we have got Lurkers to try and gain more minions, which is nice. We won't get completely thin, but just some thinning is quite nice for Minion. How good can the problem with the Minion deck is it only ever gets as good as buying one province per turn, and it needs a lot of minions, and Wharf, with the extra buys that come in, might be able to grab some extra points and might do better in the long run. I think, actually, I prefer Wharf Money, but I think I like having a Lookout in that deck anyway. So I guess I'm going to open... Well, you see, it's no point, is there, in opening Lookout Smugglers, necessarily? Because I don't think your opponent's necessarily going to hit 5 early on. Maybe the Smugglers can wait. But what are you going to do instead? Are you going to open Lookout Cut Purse? I don't really want to remodel stuff. That's not something I'm looking to do. Is Lookout Cut Purse and then picking up Smugglers on the first shuffle going to be better? I really want to hit Wharf. And actually, do I have the ability to play Smugglers that much if I'm doing Wharf Big Money? Because I'd rather play Wharf. So I don't even know if I want the Cut Purse. Maybe it's just Lookout and Silver. But I think I do get Lookout. I think Lookout is fine. Even if it only trashes 2 estates, that's going to be better for us in the long run. I think we're okay opening it. We are going to be just adding some treasures, so we want to hit 5, but do we have to hit 5 straight away? Probably not. It's only okay on this board. I can see the argument for skipping it. I don't think any other... I think it just has to be Wharf Big Money here with the lack of a village. That's just the best thing we've got going for us. The buys are too important and the draw. So, yeah, Lookout is fine there, I guess. I'm probably still going to open it because I like Lookout. But, we'd very slowly get rid of any junk if we have it. So there's only ever going to be one. What do we have here? We have... Fishing Village and Shantytown and Throne Room as villages, but we don't have any draw. This is the problem. So Outpost is not really viable here. There's no draw, but there is Militia. There is Lighthouse, but how many lighthouses do we want when we don't actually have any draw? Now, I said there's no draw. That's not technically true. There is Shantytown. What we could do is load up on fishing villages, lookouts, shantytowns, and technically you can get a bit of draw out of that. It feels bad, though. What are we actually going to do here? How do we actually hit 8? Militia sucks. I would like to not get hit by Militia. However, I don't actually want that many lighthouses. Lighthouse is only okay. Is Merchant Ship good in a deck with no draw that also has Militia attacks? It actually might be okay. This board might be weak enough that Merchant Ship is actually reasonable. I don't like Mill in the presence of Militia, so I think whatever I do, I'm opening Militia. Do I want a card like Lookout if this is a sort of a money board? I think it's okay to keep the coppers and the estates around just because there's Militia and they're just things that you get to discard. I don't think trashing's actually very important, so I might not bother with Lookout here. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to open Silver and Militia. I don't feel that worried about Lighthouse, but I will take some if I ever get them. I think I might just... Is it really okay to just eat the discard attacks from Militia? I'm not convinced. I think Merchant Ship is fine, though. I think I'm okay. Maybe I would rather have Fishing Village instead of Silver, just in the event that I get Merchant Ship and Militia collisions later on. I'm just buying Militias and Merchant Ships and Fishing Villages, I think. I think that's what I'm doing, and that should be reasonably okay. It would feel better if I'm doing that to have a Lookout, though. Just if we're going to have some kind of village, but this is just going to be a long slog of a game. Is there any plus buy? There is not. So yeah, this is just going to be a real slow game. Outpost is entirely unplayable. Lookout is just not that useful here, but I guess it's still better to trash some junk, but you're going to be having rubbish turns no matter what. I guess what I don't like is having Lookout in a turn after I've just been Militia attacked, because it really stops me from doing anything useful at all on that turn, and I think that might be enough to make it that Lookout just isn't very good. I just buy multiple Militias and multiple Merchant Ships, and eventually I'll have turns where I get to hit 8. Right. I guess so. It's just too much stuff to buy otherwise, so I think I skip Lookout here. There's just no engine. Trashing is actually not all that useful. Having some junk is fine in the onslaught of Militia and nothing else to do. So what do we have here? Well, straight away I spot Chapel. That's really good trashing, so Lookout is completely pointless. I would much rather open Chapel. I'm going to open... on 2-5, I'm opening Festival Chapel, and on 3-4, I'm opening Chapel and Silver, I guess. And then we've got Festival Library, and we've also got Witch, but, there is Chapel, so maybe Witch actually isn't that good. Festival Library is pretty good, though, with markets as well, so that's clearly what we're going to end up doing. So Lookout's not needed because Chapel is so good at trashing, there's just no point in it. And it's very easy to draw. It's just Festival Library. Okay, Last Kingdom. We have Lookout as our only trashing, and we've got a Torturer engine because there is Mining Village and there is Torturer. So it's really important that we get that set off. The curse is going to their hand. They actually cannot trash that because Lookout is the only trashing. They do have to put the curses back in their deck. That's really good for the Torturer player. It's terrible for the person getting attacked. So the Torturer engine is really important here, and we have got Outpost as well, just to really rub it in. You can get hit by Torturer so many times between turns because there's Outpost as well. Yeah, that's really nasty. So very important that we get that kicked off as soon as we can. I am opening Lookout. And Cut Purse so that they can't hit 5. Might be better than Baron. I think Baron, because we want to get rid of the estates as soon as we can. So I'm opening Lookout and Cut Purse. And I'm going to buy Mining Villages and eventually I'm going to hit 5. Yeah, and we just need to get thin as soon as we can. It's going to be real difficult to thin later on. We cannot get rid of the curses very easily at all. So it's really important we take the opportunity to thin early, but we do have to make headway towards Mining Village and Torturer as soon as we can, because that's going to win you this game. Right, Mining Village Torturer is just dominating here. So we got to get that set up. So I am opening with a lookout. If I open 2-5, what am I going to do? I think I'm just going to buy my first Torturer. That's all I do on a 2-5 and nothing, and be maybe sad about it, maybe not. But then I don't have to get like a cut purse. I can just go straight for Mining Villages and Lookouts. Do I want more than one Lookout? I think at some point I'm going to need a silver, so maybe I get Lookout and then silver. I don't know if I get another Lookout. I mean, maybe. It depends how much curses I have to pick up. I don't know. But I'd really like to just try and get thin well with the first Lookout, if I can, as much as I can, and just accept that I'm not going to get that thin, and just really hope to get the attack off early as I can. Cool, so that was Lookout. As you can see, it's fine as a trasher. You take it when trashing is needed. Like, being non-terminal is actually all right, even though it's risky and it's okay. Like, sometimes, because you're allowed to just have cards that are awkward in Dominion, like, it's fine that they're in there, and you just have to deal with that, and that's fairly interesting, you know. But it's no powerhouse Lookout. It just does trashing, which is an effect that's pretty good in general, so it's fine, you know, as a card. Cool, well, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.